This is the Litigator's Edge podcast with your host, Aniket Sawant.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Litigator's Edge, a podcast where innovative attorneys reveal the strategies that have transformed their legal practice. My name is Aniket Sawant, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Threadium. It's my privilege to have Jack Randall as my guest today. Jack is managing partner at Randall, McClenney, Daniels & Dunn, a respected law firm in the Western Tidewater area of Virginia. Jack, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite.
Jack, I'd like to start by asking you to please share either a fun fact or a cringe joke for our audience. Which will it be and what is it?
A fun fact, because I'm not a very good comedian. Fun fact about me is I was a Virginia Beach police officer for about 7.5 years before I became a lawyer.
Very cool. That's something we definitely want to get into in our conversation today. So thank you for sharing that. And as a segue to that, Jack, I think of every attorney who joins our show as a superhero, and every superhero has an origin story. What's yours?
My origin story is if I was a superhero, I don't know if I'd be more like Superman or Mickey Mouse, because sometimes it's better to have a jury laughing at you or laughing with you than kind of looking at you in awe. I think that the good lawyers today, at least after you've tried over 100 jury trials, I think a good lawyer or a superhero lawyer that the folks that I admire, they can be the old man in the library one day, very calm, very humble. And then the next day on a different jury trial, they can be the bully, the bulldog, the one that is getting to the truth, getting to the facts. And I think that spectrum is very important in litigation, dependent on your facts and circumstances, and sometimes dependent on the different deniers and the juries that you get.
Fascinating. So it's about being able to be anywhere on that spectrum, showing that versatility and that range that makes for a good lawyer is what I hear, right?
That's correct. And I've learned that the hard ways. I've learned many more things from my losses than my wins. And we've had some really good wins at our firm, and we've had a couple of losses that we've learned from that maybe we should have taken a little bit different approach.
Got it. Take us back, Jack, to the beginning of your career. You said a fun fact was that you were a police officer. So how did you go from being a police officer to serving or interpreting the law in the way that you do today?
Well, I was a police officer and went to law school through a part-time program, a 4-year part-time at Regent University. And back in those days, I guess pre-2024, when I graduated, the Commonwealth attorneys in Virginia were not involved in the possession of marijuana cases and the DUI cases. So the police officer had to prosecute his own cases. And it was a great way for me. I was in charge of my own cases of my arrest on the minor, misdemeanor cases, not the felonies, because the Commonwealth attorney would be involved. But I actually learned how to try cases. And the best way to learn is you don't want to lose to a slick defense attorney. And, after that happened a couple of times, I figured that I need to be more prepared and learn how to do this the right way. And I started looking at other lawyers, looking at other police officers when I was brand new. I was hired when I was 20. So I was a very young man and just learned on the fly. And I enjoyed trying cases. And eventually I figured, hey, maybe I should go to law school. And I had several mentors. One is on the Court of Appeals now, Bob Humphreys, and also Sonny Stallings, who gave me one of my first jobs as a lawyer. And I think I learned from people that really knew what they were doing, and they guided me in the right direction.
That's fantastic. So in a way, you received on-the-job training for being a lawyer while you were a police officer, and then that led to your going into law school.
Correct. Before I even went to law school.
That's great. That's great. During your career or throughout your career journey, can you pinpoint key moments in your career that solidified your decision to build your own firm, which you obviously have today, and advocate in the manner that you do now?
Well, I've been a member of several different firms. I was a prosecutor for a short period of my career. That's how I did my first jury trials. Then I worked for several firms, small to mid-sized firms. And I think what was important to me was the mission statement of the firm. Some firms have different priorities: money, organization, specific practice areas. And I started out mostly doing criminal, and then it shifted more to domestic relations, divorce, custody, because there's a lot of that out there. And then now in my career, I'm more focused on personal injury. Still do the domestic relations, but probably less criminal than I did early in my career. But the focus of our firm now is seeking justice. That is something that, we take a lot of cases that a lot of firms would not take, but we feel like that we have a niche of seeking justice, no matter the odds. We want to take that case and try to do what's right and have integrity in everything that we do, win or lose.
That makes a lot of sense. Looking back at your history, what's a case or matter that fundamentally changed how you approach litigation? I know that you mentioned how your journey as a police officer and having to prosecute your own cases got you on the track of becoming a lawyer. But then what were some matters that actually changed your thinking around litigation?
There was several high-profile criminal cases of a sexual abuse nature that I became involved in that were not investigated very closely. Our firm, and we had numerous lawyers that worked on it. I was the lead lawyer, but we had many dedicated paralegals, many dedicated investigators, many dedicated associates that worked hard on several cases early in the firm's career that we obtained acquittals in front of a jury. Several of the cases were just dismissed by the prosecution when we brought exculpatory evidence or inconsistent statements or bias or motive. And I think that's important on many of the criminal cases is that don't make any sense or just seem odd, is you have to get to the core of bias or motive to fabricate. And with custody today, with divorce today, there's always an attempt by many, not all, to get a leg up on litigation. And sometimes they go towards a false criminal complaint. And that's something that certainly has increased significantly since I started practicing law. And that's the benefit of kind of starting out with the criminal practice and then going towards more of a domestic relations and then now personal injury.
Fascinating. Can you speak to some of the other practice areas that your other colleagues work in?
We have a lot of personal injury, a lot of domestic relations, there's a criminal practice. We have several of our lawyers that do workers' compensation, but we have a very diverse general practice. We have several civil litigators. We have Asha Panja, who leads our personal injury team. She's recently joined our firm and a great asset. But again, great firm. We've got a total of 12 lawyers, and we serve all the way from Virginia Beach towards the west, towards Mecklenburg County.
Very cool. And speaking in terms of the region that you're in, so you're a lifelong resident of the Western Tidewater area of Virginia. What are some ways in which you've been involved in your community throughout your time there?
Well, we sponsor all kinds of events. One event that we've recently sponsored is called the Pink Ride in Virginia Beach. That is a breast cancer awareness group. A great organization to sponsor, does great things, and majority of their money, I think it's 98%, I think goes towards actual cancer research. I just wrote a check today for the City of Franklin, Southampton County Fair. We have been involved in quite a numerous amount of fundraising. I think the Virginia Tech golf tournament is here locally. I think we're sponsoring a hole on that. But we always want to give back to the community because, we have 12 lawyers, staff of 40 plus. The community supports us. We make a good living. And we want to give back a significant percentage of that to the community to support them.
That's wonderful. Switching gears a little bit to innovation. You mentioned obviously you have a firm with a number of attorneys, including those who've joined recently and a large staff supporting you. When it comes to streamlining operations across your both your attorneys as well as your staff, how do you use or how do you see the role of innovation within that? Is it about using specific technologies, processes, client service, team building? Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Well, we have several things that we do a little bit differently. We have first we use the LexisNexis AI tool quite a bit. That's something that's fairly new to our firm. Some firms have been using it a lot longer than we have, but that is something that we are finding and using the LexisNexis AI tool with Chat GPT in conjunction has saved us a lot of time. That being said, we use MyCase. That's just what I've used for probably the last 10 years. And the MyCase tool, we're able to automate quite a few, mundane tasks, rep letters, fee agreements, things of that nature, regular discovery in a criminal case or a traffic case. It's saving us so much time without sacrificing jobs. These aren't robots that are doing this. This is something that we are just finding a way to save time and increase our profitability because we really want our paralegals talking to the client. I mean, that's never going to be replaced. Giving updates, doing the grunt work, legal research. We don't rely on AI for that. People have to go over it and check it and recheck it and just case preparation. Those are some of the things that we are doing. We also have a mailer program we have several traffic attorneys that work primarily DUIs, reckless driving, speeding, and we have a in-house marketing program that we use. And we're just now starting to use programming as well as some of the AI tools with that. And it's just making it more efficient.
That's wonderful. You touched upon a couple of items there, which I'd like to maybe dig a little bit deeper into. So one is clearly your firm is very tech forward in terms of the suite of AI and other technology tools that you use for optimizing various parts of your operations. How do you determine in this ever expanding universe of tools that have AI, how do you determine what to use and what maybe to pass on?
Well, it's difficult. You're always inundated with new technology, with whether it's on your LinkedIn account, whether it's in your email or just cold calls. And I try to vet a lot of that with my office manager, and she would maybe take 10% of that and set me up because I always tell my staff, if we feel like we can improve, we want to talk to them because we're always worried about making the right decision. And I try to talk to other leaders in law firms and watching podcasts like this to see what other people are doing. Because, I may be the managing partner of this, 12 lawyer firm, but I second guess myself all the time. And recently, sometimes I think, hey, man, we need to get, further and get in technology more. And I find out with the people I'm talking to that we're a little bit ahead of the curve. But I think it's word of mouth. It's always be willing to improve and listen to others, the experts in the field. And sometimes you just need to take a leap of faith. Hey, we're going to try this and we hope it works out. And then if it isn't working out, that's the real decision to not do the definition of insanity, keep doing the same thing, but expecting different results. Because usually if something isn't going to work, you're going to know within 30 days. So it's just a balancing act of profitability and innovation. But you can't be up, 75% innovation and have no profitability. So it's just that balancing act to have, whether it's 5%, 10% of just trying different and new things.
Very cool. Yeah, that certainly seems like a very innovative way to actually approach adoption of innovation itself. With that, in your experience, Jack, what's the biggest misconception that you might have heard from the attorneys that you speak to, or that you've seen publicly or in podcasts, about integrating new technologies or new processes, especially AI, into your workflows? What resistance have you seen from maybe not your firm, but maybe from others around you? And how would you advise attorneys to overcome that resistance and those misconceptions?
And what I see, and again, our firm, I guess, is a small to mid-sized firm, is you've got to have a leader that kind of jumps into the pool and starts swimming. So I think fear, as we've always done things this way, and you get that from staff. Anytime we try something different, people don't like it. So I think you just need leadership that's going to be trying new things to some level, whether it's 10%, 5%. But I see a lot of law firms that are scared to spend, because a lot of the new technology is expensive. So whether it's cost or whether it's fear or whether it's change, I think it's a mixture of those things that hold many law firms back.
Interesting. That makes a lot of sense. If we go from this abstract discussion to maybe a more concrete example, so what's an unconventional strategy? Maybe it was through the processes that you used, the methods that you used, and or the technologies that you used, that you employed in a specific matter that maybe gave you and your client a competitive edge.
I think that the best thing that we have done is to use some AI tools, and there's probably 15 to 20 businesses out there that will come in to evaluate your law firm and integrate to some extent the mundane tasks. And with our law firm, I guess that we want maybe 50% with just kind of the basic intake process, fee agreements, payment links, things of that nature that's still monitored by several employees. Because you can't just say, here, take the reins and just do these money. If you would do that, there's still going to be problems. So don't think that you're going to hire a company, they're going to come in and there's going to be perfection. But I think the best that we have done is we have jumped off to AI automation, and it is integrated within our MyCase program. And I think that's something where you need significant technology. Our firm, we have several different vendors that provide technology to us, Tidewater Techs and Array Digital. They do a great job. Both these firms do a great job. But again, it's a balancing act of technology, cost, and innovation. Again, I get back to that because your profit margins on your income and expense sheet have to all add up to be able to do this. So you kind of need to sock away a certain amount of money, and not everything is going to work, because it certainly has not all worked in our law firm, but we've been lucky. We've had more wins than losses.
Very cool. Jack, being at the vanguard of technology as you are, it certainly sounds like it. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for technology or innovation over the next 3 to 5 years? Just seeing what you're seeing today and maybe having a little bit of vision into the future.
What I see from a profitability standpoint is probably analysis of medical records in the personal injury field. I've recently been with demand packages that are kind of AI driven, analysis of medical records that are AI driven, and just third party vendors that do just an exceptional job that can do it so much faster than us, slow lawyers, I guess. And they kind of put the demand packages, they analyze the medical records, and they put it on a silver platter for us, where before it just takes hours upon hours. Something like this can be done much quicker. And I would expect that, it will go from saving several hours to 10 hours to 20 hours. Because what I'm hearing, at the conferences that I go to, from the VTLA conference, they kind of have speakers that are cutting edge on the AI front and the technology front. is that we're just getting better and better and better. So who knows where we'll be in 5 years, but that is definitely something from personal injury that is exciting, but still we have to be very cautious and very ethical, and kind of take our time and to make sure that everything is correct that we're getting.
Makes a lot of sense. This has been a great conversation, Jack. Just to wrap it up with a couple of quick questions. So, we live in an interesting time with all the technology that's coming at us and just changes in society in general. If you were to go back and give yourself advice as a junior attorney, as maybe that 20-year-old who's entering the police force, or someone else maybe just coming out of college, or what advice would you give them, especially in today's context?
Well, when you're new and young, you don't know much. You're probably very smart substantively, but procedurally, you have really no idea. And I was lucky to get really good mentors. I had a great mentor in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. And then when I went to private practice, I had great mentors. I had Richard Raley, who's passed away now. He was one of my big mentors in running a law firm. He kind of taught me the do's and don'ts, basics of that. So my number one advice would be get several mentors, and the different areas. You can look at them and you can find out. You just ask someone that's successful and they'll tell you what they're good at and what they're not so good at. And there are a lot of things that I'm not so good at that I have some of my partners that focus on that area because I'm just not good at. And you have to be honest with yourself and determine that, hey, I'm not good at everything. But the number one advice is to get, ethical, humble mentors that won't tell you what you want to hear, but tell you what you need to hear.
Words to live by for sure. Thank you, Jack. Final question. What is a question that I should have asked you, but I didn't?
I'm really not sure. I mean, you asked a lot of good questions. So, you would have to answer that question yourself. Do I play a lot of poker? No, I have a terrible poker face.
That's a good one. Awesome. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, Jack, speaking with you. I really appreciate your making the time and for sharing these insights. And I look forward to sharing them with the world very soon. Thank you so much.
You have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Litigator's Edge podcast, brought to you by Threadio.